I'm excited to introduce our opening keynote to the Queen City Leader Summit, Amy Burkett. Amy is the General Manager of PBS Charlotte and the author of the 7 Ds to Your Destiny. Queen City Leader Summit, please welcome Amy Burkett.
Hey friends, I am so excited for this opportunity to sow seeds of success in you, to inspire you, to equip you, and hopefully get you revved up to be all that you were created to be. It's one of my favorite things in the world is to have the opportunity to share and to pass on what I've learned over the last 30 years in broadcast television. I spent 9 years in commercial TV and the last 21 in public television leadership outside of Philadelphia, and about 8 years here leading the PBS station in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it has been quite the journey, filled with roller coasters. And it's so funny that when you hit a certain age, you feel good about looking back over all the challenges that you've had, because it equips you and allows you to be able to handle the problems that come your way. So as we look at volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, you know, my life has had a lot of experience. Has given me that experience to be able to navigate these kind of roller coasters. But if I could just be transparent, when March 15th, 2020 hit, it rocked my world. My family was about to leave for a vacation in Lake Tahoe that we have planned for over a year. It would have been our son's freshman spring break. He's a big snowboarder. He'd never been to Tahoe, wanted to do that. We've been looking forward to this forever. And the day before, the world shut down. And I admit, some of my thoughts were wrong. I couldn't believe it was happening. I couldn't believe we were locked in our homes. I mean, talk about volatility and uncertainty. Yet I'm an optimist, and I'm like, oh, a couple of weeks and we'll be okay. And then I'm like, okay, it's not a couple of weeks, maybe it'll be Easter. Then I was like, okay, here in the sunny South, once things heat up, nothing will survive. Memorial Day, this will be gone. I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong. But you know what? I still didn't put my head in the sand. I lead a nonprofit and I had to make lots of changes. And I was so excited when we got the whole team together and we had to think about how do we make these changes. You see, people don't follow authority, they follow courage. And it's the leader's job to model that courage. And even though I had trouble sleeping at night, many a times I was up at 3 a.m. praying and reading my Bible. As a person of faith, that was a way that I was able to defeat my fear, because we'd never seen anything like this in my lifetime. Yet the 08-09 crisis, when I worked at a PBS station outside Philadelphia, I unfortunately had to lay off half of my production team. It didn't feel good, I didn't like being a part of it, and I was bound and determined that I would not have to lay off a single person here at PBS Charlotte. So I had to change. I had to be flexible. I had to look for new ways to reinvent ourselves. You know, we rely on donations from the public, and so many times we make a lot of money from events, and there wasn't an event that could be had. So we made a pivot, and we switched to major donor work, to our most kind philanthropists in our community that helped us get through this. Plus, we also became much more entrepreneurial as a nonprofit. We did a lot of work for hire. As other organizations had done layoffs, there was an increased need for production services. And our company stepped up to the plate and was able to generate about $250,000 to navigate and to help us get through these difficult times. You know, I had to show that courage. I didn't have the opportunity to allow my fear to get the best of me. You know, it also takes courage to grow up and be the leader that each of us was created to be. Your destiny is out there waiting for you, but you've got to show the courage. And how do we show courage? Well, some days we've just got to take the time to sit back and to learn and to grow. And you know, leaders help people stretch, not stay the same. So I'll admit, my team wasn't thrilled with me at first when I'm like, okay, we've got to change. What has been successful for us in the past isn't going to work in the future. You know, there are so many examples in life in the midst of chaos where opportunity exists, and you've got to look for that opportunity. I mean, look at all the restaurants, many of which unfortunately had to shut down, but others pivoted to takeout service and did extremely well. I mean, look at Chick-fil-A. They still don't let people in their buildings because their takeout service is just exceeding all revenue expectations. You know, I also wish I had invested in stock in Zoom back last year, because who knew that Zoom would be the way that we would connect? It would be the way that we would do office meetings. It would be the way that we would have our family get-togethers. Many Thanksgivings happened over Zoom, and Christmas and New Year's Eve. But there was an opportunity, and there was a way. When you set out as a leader, you always find a way. Sometimes we limit our own thinking by saying there's only one way, but there are many ways. We've just got to try. And we've got to warm up to the fact that failure is just a part of success. I call it a stepping stone towards success. And especially when you're dealing with volatility and uncertainty and complexity and ambiguity, you better get pretty comfortable with the fact that you may try something and it may not work, and that's okay. Do your analysis and then pivot and check again. Because, you know, we look at Thomas Edison, it took him 10,000 tries to make the light bulb. You could say he failed more than anyone else in the world, but he didn't stop. And you know, I've got to tell you a story that takes you way back to when I was in college. So I had always wanted to be a broadcast journalist. Literally, from the time I was 5 years old in kindergarten, sitting on my grandfather's lap, watching the evening news with Walter Cronkite, my grandfather one day said, "Buddy, you could do this one day." And I said, "Okay, Grandpa, I will." I won essay contests in elementary school, middle school, high school, went off to college. I'm from Ohio. I went to Bowling Green State University. Freshman year, I joined the school newspaper. I was doing well. I was getting front page articles. I was working hard. It wasn't easy, but everything was moving in the right direction, and it was spring semester. And I had to take an entrance to journalism exam. And I studied for it, and I did the best that I could. And I took that test, and I failed that lousy test. So I took it again, and I failed it again. And I took it the third time, and you know what they say about the third time, that the third time is the charm. Well, for everybody except me. I failed that lousy test a third time, a fourth time. It took me 5 tries before I actually passed that broadcast to journalism exam that allowed me to be a journalism student. I made myself sick. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I called myself internally every bad name you could think of, which was, you know, my stinking thinking was getting the best of me. And sometimes during volatile times, that's what happens to us. We allow our stinking thinking to take over, and that's why we've got to get ourselves around people who are positive, around people who can equip us, around people where their positivity and their belief in us, we can borrow that belief until we can get enough courage to develop our own belief in ourselves. You know, my mentor, John Maxwell, says, "You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Choose them wisely." You don't want to hang out with those stinking thinking folks, because that's not going to get you where you want to be, and that's not going to help you fulfill the great destiny that you were created for. You know, I've always been a person who has focused on destiny, and I always say that the greatest sin is not being all that I was created to be, and it makes me nervous. I don't want to let down God, who put so much potential in me, and He put so much potential in you. It doesn't matter how young or how old you are, you were created for greatness. I always say that. But you've got to take the steps to grow the skills that you have to really walk into that great destiny. Do you know the number one reason why people don't reach their destinies? It's because they can't defeat their own disappointment. You know, that really is the title of the book that I wrote and published this year, The 7 Ds to Your Destiny. And that's a whole chapter that I talk about defeating disappointment, because it's just so important for us to be able to say, yes, we made a mistake. Yes, we may have failed. Yes, we may have screwed up again and again and again. But as long as you still have breath, you have the ability to course correct, to deal with the uncertainty, to look for the opportunity in the midst of chaos, because it's all around us. We've just got to be focused to be able to do it. And so another part of walking into our great destiny, we have to defer our need to know how. And again, I'm talking about the book that I wrote, and I wrote a chapter on this that really, while I was writing it, it encouraged me, and I hope that it will encourage you too. Because so many of us use as an excuse that they can't take that next step in their business, they can't start their own business, they can't go out on their own, they can't reach for that promotion because they don't know how. But we've got to defer our need to know how. And the best way that we can do that is to look back over our lives at all of the things that we have successfully done that we had never done before. That may sound a little confusing, but I want to take you back because I know you have a long list just like I do. So we're going to start with when we were really little. We didn't know how to crawl until we did it, but then we did. We didn't know how to walk until we walked, and we fell down and we got up, and we fell down and we got up, and life is the exact same. We'll fall down and we'll pull ourselves up. The only true failure is giving up, my friends. We didn't know how to ride a bike, we didn't know how to roller skate, we didn't know how to drive a car for the first time, we didn't know how to get the first job, the second job, the third job. But yet when we look back over our lives, we did all of those things. So we have to defer our need to know how and not use it as an excuse or a crutch to keep us from going to the next level, keep us from being all that we were created to be. Now I'm going to share with you my little recipe, and this is so simple. Everyone can do it. I know you can do it. And I love being around can-do people. And that's why you're sharing this time with us, because you do want to grow. You do want to get to the next level. So here's my little 4-step recipe for deferring my need to know. It starts out with you have got to begin by growing yourself. And you're doing that. You've done the first step right now by tuning in and wanting to learn and to be equipped and to be encouraged. And like I said, you've got to be stretched. Because that's what leaders do. We stretch people. We can't leave them the same. I can't leave you the way you are. And I hope and I pray that when you leave that you are fired up and you're going to take some action. I call action my superpower. And action is so fulfilling. Even if it's the wrong action sometimes, it gets us one step closer to the right action. So again, first, we've got to be able to grow ourselves. That's the first step. The second step is concentrate on learning. That's part. They go together. And then we got to talk about the 2 P's. Now, these are P's that I'm not really thrilled about. And one is patience. You've got to add patience. It is my least favorite P on the face of the planet. My team will tell you that I am not a patient person. My husband of 30 years will tell you I'm not a patient person. And my 20-year-old college student will tell you Mom is not a patient person. But life has taught me patience. And then my favorite P, which is persistence. I learned that in college when I failed that test. Little did I know that failing that test in college so many times, 4 times, passing it the 5th time, to be able to fulfill my dream of being a broadcast journalist was a setup to teach me, perseverance is the same as tenacity. And broadcast television has been filled with lots of challenges. I've been called ugly, too fat, not able to do it, I would never make it. And yet, my tenacity and my persistence has proved all of them wrong. I'm so honored to have been able to lead teams to, I believe the number is 10 regional Emmy Awards in Philadelphia and in Nashville, the 2 regions of which I've spent the most time in. And at first, I didn't know how to win an Emmy Award. I set that goal when I switched from broadcast to from commercial to broadcast television. And I didn't know how. I had to defer my need to know how. I had to study, I had to watch things that won Emmys. I had to fail, repeat, get up, do better, polish, perfect, grow, learn. I put those things together. That's growing myself, concentrating on learning, patience, perseverance, and poof. Next thing you know, I had the opportunity to call myself an Emmy Award-winning television reporter, an anchor, a producer, a leader who has helped other people accomplish dreams that they didn't think was possible, because I extend my belief in them until they are allowed to borrow it until they have belief in themselves. And so right now, I'm holding out this present for you. It is my belief in you, my belief that there is so much more in store for you. The best is yet to come. You've just got to make some changes, some pivots. You've just got to not be afraid of the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity that exists all around you. And you've got to put that cape on your back and take action. I call action my superpower. And so I sometimes think I have a cape and I have to tighten it so that I don't lose it, and that I can take action and I can make a difference, and you can too. My question is, do you know what you're capable of, my friends? It's a bit of a loaded question. To know what you're capable of, you sort of look back and you see what you've done, but that's still not even what you're capable of, because you're capable of so much more. So in order to really, really be all that you were created to be, you've got to be able to withstand force and pressure. Force and pressure. because that is the key to a real leader. Because our lives are filled with so much force and so much pressure. You know, that's what I said, find the right people to hang out with, leaders to hang out with, because iron sharpens iron. And I want you to surround yourself by people who can help you be all that you were created to be. You know, it's not a real friend who just lets you stay the same. You know, you've got to push yourself out. You've got to work harder. Sometimes it's just working smarter and being willing to try and being willing to fail and move forward. And in complexity, the time this coronavirus really set people back. But you know what? People have been set up, new businesses have been created, wealth has been gained. And yes, there's been sadness and there's been loneliness and there's been challenges, but we can get through that. You are strong enough. You are capable. You were created for greatness. I love saying that because I believe that so much about you, about each of us. We were all created for greatness. In order to do that, thinking won't overcome fear, but action will. And so that's what I want to leave you with. Thinking won't overcome fear, but action will. So I hope that you will use these tips. I hope that they will inspire you. I hope you feel equipped so that you can do more. I always say, when I was a kid, I loved to read. And I loved the children's book, The Little Engine That Could. And my whole career, of which I have had many setbacks, there wasn't enough time to tell you all of them, I saw myself as the little engine that could, can, and will. And that's helped me overcome the difficult times. That's helped me overcome ambiguity and uncertainty and volatility and complexity. And I promise you it can help you too. Surround yourself with the right people. Stretch yourself, stretch your team. Don't love them too much to leave them the way that they are. That's what I feel. And you know what? You have the ability to go so much further than you ever dreamed possible. Thank you for your time. I hope that you'll connect with me on social media, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I have a private page for folks who have read my book, The 7 Ds to Your Destiny, and I would love to see you there. We encourage each other on that site, and I hope that I'll be able to encourage you again in the future. But remember, my friends, you were created for greatness. Thanks so much for your time. God bless.
Thanks, Amy. That was a very relevant and applicable presentation. I really love the number one reason people don't reach their destiny is because they can't defeat their own disappointment. Very powerful. That's where the courage and hope come in that I talked about. Being innovative and creating business in a pandemic, that's fantastic. You're the sum of the 5 people you hang around. Choose wisely. Well, that's why you're here. Defer your need to know how. Really, really good, relevant information. Hey, Amy, I've got your next book title. Patience, Persistence, Poof. Give it some thought. And listen, you really were created for greatness.